Most XRP holders are watching the price chart right now, but while everyone is focused on the next move, something much bigger may be happening behind the scenes. A company just made a major bet on XRP Ledger technology to solve a problem that affects millions of consumers every day, proving whether a product is actually made where the label says it is. And once you see how this system works, you may look at XRPL adoption very differently. Hey everyone, welcome to XRP Financial Horizon, and today's story might be one of the more underrated headlines to come out of the XRP world this year. Made in USA Inc. just made a move that connects blockchain technology to something almost every American has thought about at some point, whether the products we buy are actually made where the label says they are. This story blends supply chains, artificial intelligence, and the XRP Ledger into one project. And once you hear how it works, you will see why enterprise watchers are paying attention. Here is the setup. For years, XRP has mostly been known for one thing: moving money across borders quickly and cheaply. That reputation is still true, but it is only part of the story now. Businesses are starting to build actual infrastructure on top of the XRP Ledger. Things like identity systems, tracking tools, and verification platforms that have nothing to do with sending payments. Made in USA Inc. is the latest company to jump into that lane, and its plan involves building a product authentication system that runs directly on XRPL's technology. According to market analyst Zafe Crypto, Made in USA Inc. acquired a complete technology stack that runs on both the public and private sides of the XRP Ledger. That detail matters because it tells you this is not a small pilot project or a marketing gimmick. A full stack acquisition means the company picked up working technology, not just a concept. The plan is to use it to launch a platform that verifies whether products carrying the Made in USA label are genuinely manufactured in the United States, using blockchain records instead of paperwork that can be altered or misplaced. Think about how supply chains actually work today. A product can pass through several suppliers, factories, and shipping companies before it ever reaches a store shelf. At each step, there is a chance for documentation to get lost, altered, or simply misrepresented. Made in USA Inc. wants to close that gap by pairing artificial intelligence with blockchain record keeping. The AI handles the verification checks, and the XRP Ledger is designed to provide tamper-resistant records that are difficult to alter without detection. That combination is what gives manufacturers, retailers, and regulators a shared source of truth they can all check independently. Let's look at what was actually included in this acquisition, because the specifics tell you a lot. The deal covers proprietary domains, AI-based verification tools, blockchain infrastructure, digital authentication technology, and supply chain software built to work alongside all of it. None of these pieces do much on their own, but stacked together, they form a working pipeline. A product gets checked, that check gets recorded, and the record becomes something a retailer, a regulator, or even a curious shopper could potentially verify without having to trust a company's word alone. Now here's the part I find genuinely clever about this setup. The system is built as a hybrid, meaning it uses both private and public versions of the XRP Ledger at the same time. Sensitive business details, the stuff companies do not want competitors or the public seeing, stay locked down on private XRPL networks. But the proof that a product is authentic, the actual verification record, gets anchored on the public XRP Ledger, where it becomes visible and checkable. Companies get to keep their internal data private, while still offering outside proof that something is real. Why go through the trouble of splitting the system like this instead of keeping everything private or everything public? Because neither extreme works well for a supply chain. Full privacy gives you no public trust. Full transparency exposes trade secrets and supplier relationships that businesses have every right to protect. This hybrid model threads that needle, and it is a big reason why XRPL keeps showing up in these enterprise supply chain conversations. It is flexible enough to satisfy both sides of the equation at once. Let's get into the paperwork because this deal is fully documented, not just something floating around on social media. It was disclosed in a Form 8K filed on June 26, 2026. According to that filing, Made in USA Inc. acquired these technology assets from its affiliate, Made in USA 1 LLC. The payment was not cash. It was 5 million restricted shares of common stock. That detail is worth sitting with for a second because paying with equity instead of cash usually signals that a company is betting on the long-term value of what it just bought, rather than treating it as a quick flip. The filing spells out exactly what changed hands. blockchain infrastructure, AI verification technology, intellectual property, and additional digital assets, all meant to become the foundation of this new verification platform. When a deal is structured this way, using stock rather than cash, it tends to reflect confidence that the technology will pay off down the road. It also ties the fortunes of both companies together, since the value of those shares depends on Made in USA Inc. actually executing on this plan. This story fits into a much larger pattern happening across XRPL right now, and the numbers back that up. Recent reports pointed to nearly 1 million AI agent transactions taking place on the network. That is not a small figure, and it shows AI-driven activity is already a real workload on XRPL, not just a future promise. When you put that stat next to what Made in USA Inc. is building, a clearer picture forms. XRPL is quietly becoming a place where AI systems and blockchain infrastructure work together on practical business problems. Made in USA Inc. is not the only company making this kind of move either. Other organizations have been turning to XRPL for tokenization projects, digital identity systems, and supply chain tracking tools. Every new project adds a little more proof that this network can handle real enterprise workloads, not just token transfers. And there is a compounding effect here worth noticing. The more companies that build serious infrastructure on a network, the easier it becomes for the next company to justify doing the same thing, because the technology has already been tested in the real world. Step back for a second and think about timing, because it actually matters here. Supply chains today are more global, more layered, and honestly more confusing than they used to be. Consumers keep asking harder questions about where products actually come from, and regulators are paying closer attention to authenticity claims across nearly every industry. A verification system built on XRPL is arriving right when that demand is peaking, not years too early or too late. That kind of timing is often the difference between a project that gets ignored and one that actually gets adopted. If you hold XRP or just follow the space closely, here is why this story is worth more than a passing glance. It is easy to get pulled into daily price movement and lose sight of what is happening underneath it. But projects like this one are a reminder that XRPL is being used to solve real, unglamorous business problems, the kind that do not make headlines on their own, but add up over time. Utility like verification systems and supply chain tools tends to matter more in the long run than short-term price swings, even if it does not feel that way day to day. There is also a cultural angle here that is easy to miss. American consumers have shown growing interest in knowing exactly where their products come from, and a blockchain-backed verification system gives them something more solid than a label they simply have to trust. If Made in USA Inc. pulls this off, it could become a reference point other industries look at when they want to prove authenticity without relying purely on paperwork or marketing claims. That kind of ripple effect is worth watching closely over the next few months. So where does this leave things? Made in USA Inc. now has AI-powered verification tools, a hybrid blockchain setup that balances privacy and transparency, and a real supply chain product built on the XRP Ledger. None of this guarantees success on its own. Execution still matters more than any announcement, but it does add one more concrete example of XRPL being used for something practical outside of payments. That is the trend worth tracking here. That is where we will leave it for today on XRP Financial Horizon. If you want more breakdowns like this one, stick around and subscribe so you catch the next update as it happens. I would genuinely like to know what you think. Do you see this kind of verification system actually catching on, or does it feel like a stretch? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.